Okay, let's start by the easy part. What is Odebrecht? So Odebrecht is a Brazilian conglomerate consisting in different businesses in the fields of engineering, construction, chemicals, and petrochemicals. By listening to this, you could think, wow, sounds like an amazing company that probably achieves a lot of things by hard work. But no. In 2014, while under a minor investigation, the Brazilian authorities found out without even trying that some high executives and administrators inflated the prices of some contracts and then gave these same contracts to the above-mentioned company, Odebrecht. Of course, that the overpaid money ended up in the wrong hands and in one of the biggest corruption cases of Latin America, which included Brazil, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Chile, Argentina, Mexico, Guatemala, Angola, Portugal, Mozambique, and the list goes on. So, in the case of Venezuela, Odebrecht was accused of bribing politicians for more than at least $300 million, and even to an amount close to the point of being more than $1,000 million if proved, with the objective of getting over more than 10 construction contracts on the region since 2001. A lot of these infrastructure projects never got completed, and the government of Nicolás Maduro had to step up and say they were going to complete it. Other thing that caught our attention is that they bribe politicians from the left and politicians from the right in order to secure their dominance in this country.
Peru, a multicultural, polyglot, and multi-ethnic country that has been characterized for its beautiful landscapes, delicious food, and a working class that is always struggling for what they deserve. It's a country that has also been implicated in the dirtiest scandal of corruption of the decade. It has been revealed that from 2005 to 2014, the government has received more than $29 million in bribes from the Odebrecht, including the tenures of 3 presidents, Alejandro Toledo, Alan Garcia, and Ollantumala. An investigation sent by Brazilian authorities were revealed to the Peruvian authorities advising about these bribes. The project was called Project OH, which no one actually knows what these letters stand for, but are the initials of the previous president, Ollantumala. Some presidents have been trying to implement some set of rules against corruption, such as the Integral Presidential Commission by Pablo Kuczynski. The problem is that Kuczynski was also investigated for presumed connections with the Odebrecht scandal, since he was the Prime Minister of Peru during the period of 2005 to 2006, and asked for their renounce as a president last year, justifying that these accusations were unfair. This bribing scandal has had really big implications and consequences for the future of the country in some different ways. For example, in the economic way, the Peruvian businesses have lost international confidence since the level of reputation has lowered a lot. Some huge investment projects, such as the South Peru gas pipeline, which is frozen, reducing the GDP in 0.8 percentage points in 2017, a bigger number than the speculations made by the MEF. However, according to the Minister of Finance and Economy, this could be a good opportunity to restructure the system and convert these threats into opportunities.
One of the nations involved is Panama, which will have contracted with Odebrecht in several governments, where in addition to violating public procurement laws, the cost of the works was increased. The bribes that were paid were from more than $59 million between 2010 and 2014. In January of 2017, the same ministry made money laundering. The charges against 17 people, including businessmen and former officials of the Ricardo Martinelli's government, today in jail in Panama for illegally monitoring communications with members of the opposition. Through the declarations made by 3 Brazilian collaborators involved in the bribes, it was learned that Odebrecht had paid more than $86 million in bribes in Panama. This scandal left Panama with a bad reputation in terms of international contracting because, although the entry into force of some permissive contracts leave much to think according to their reserve and their filters of legality, also loses confidence and good faith, which are indispensable elements to contract either with national entities or international states.
In Colombia, one case where a congressman, Candidato Nicolás Viula, received between 2030 and 2040 bribes for $5 million from the Brazilian construction company Odebrecht. He was convicted for having been hired by Odebrecht to obtain the contract for the Ocaña-Gamarra Highway in favor of the Ruta del Sol concession, of which Odebrecht was part of. Similarly, Bula has declared to have delivered a sum close to $1 million to a businessman named Andrés Giraldo, who would be the link between him and the head of campaign of Santos' president re-election in 2040, Roberto Prieto. This would imply that the government of the Nobel Peace Prize and the president himself will have some degree of involvement in this huge transaction and scandal. This multinational company also paid to Duda Mendoza, arrested in Operación Lavallero, to advise the campaign of the candidate Oscar Iván Zuluaga, and without his experience, he helped Oscar Iván Zuluaga to win the first round of the elections in 2040. An economical consequence in Colombia is the contract of La Ruta del Sol 2, where Odebrecht paid bribes for $11 million. As the crime was proven, the contract will have to be declared null, and this has two serious problems. On the one hand, the work will have to stop, and it could take more than 2 years while another tender is opened and the new operator is installed. The other problem is that the contracting consortium owes the Colombian and international banks 2.4 trillion pesos. An amount of that magnitude in the air could have repercussions in the entire financial system. The damage to the image and reputation that Odebrecht caused to Colombia was very great. The national and international banks decided that before supporting or investing in works in the country, they will exercise controls over the construction and management of the wilderness through independent advisors. Investors will not want to put their resources in a country that they do not trust and will leave it, discouraging the international market and creating a huge financial trouble inside the country.
Brazil, another country affected by the Odebrecht scandal, probably the one which was most severely affected, has started a downward spiral after the Lava Jato, the operation to undercover this scandal, was known. As a result of this operation, businessmen, politicians, and even the current president at the time were found to be involved. Politically, Brazil became very unstable, which led to again a number of politicians such as senators leaving their posts. The most important arrest was made to former Brazilian President Lula, who was later known to have received funds from the company for his presidential campaign. Because of this arrest, luxurious apartments in Brazil that were owned by Lula were seized by the police after they were known to be a series of gifts by the company to him. After a series of trials, he was imprisoned. Economically, Brazil was also very hurt by this scandal, as a lot of foreign companies decided to leave the country due to a lack of confidence in the Brazilian economy after Moody's and S&P released their confidence score for the country. Socially, Brazil became very unpredictable. This due to multiple protests year-round erupting across the country, both in favor of the government at the time of Lula and against him. This led to various confrontations between police and the citizens with themselves, and led to a big division of the country, as both political sides were fighting not only to have the majority of the people, but to vanish the other side.
In Mexico, Odebrecht paid more than $10.5 million in order to acquire the licitations of public constructions with a revenue of more than $39 million. The ones found guilty of corruption include ex-president of oil company Pemex, ex-president of the country Enrique Peña Nieto, governors and mayors. The problem in Mexico that makes their case different than the other countries is the fact that despite the Justice Department has the names, confessions, and documents, it has ignored the case completely, almost going into oblivion. The people has protested and the press has called them out publicly, but still has no effect on the Justice Department. In terms of international relations, this is not news. The subject is being ignored like the rest of the corruption cases that continuously go on in the country. Even so, that it wasn't very known that Mexico was also involved in the scandal. International entities don't feel attracted to the Mexican market for these reasons. It involves too much economical risk, it has a volatile economy, and a political deficit that doesn't make it a very attractive market.
Between 2007 and 2014, Argentina received around $35 million during Cristina Fernández's presidency. A lot of public functionaries received numerous bribes for them to grant Odebrecht with many construction projects. Now let's take a look at some examples. Starting in 2005 and ending in 2007, Odebrecht was in charge of a major expansion of gas pipelines through more than 15 provinces of Argentina. In 2008, was granted one of the largest investments in Argentina in the last 50 years, in which they were looking to provide safe drinking water to the northern of Buenos Aires. In 2013, Odebrecht was in charge of Sarmiento's railroad, as well as the expansion of some electrical networks capacity in the north, south, and Atlantic coast. Argentina penalized Odebrecht for a year in which they were not able to participate in any illegal construction activities in their country. This obviously affects the industry because a lot of projects were stopped and as consequence slowed the industry. The 12 months has passed and Odebrecht is trying to reestablish itself legally. High commands are reviewing and evaluating all possibilities of letting Odebrecht continue with their projects or getting rid of the firm in Argentina.
Odebrecht fue destruida totalmente y tenía grandes proyectos aquí por su capacidad de ingeniería y de acción y ya, bueno, quienes quedaron encargados de Odebrecht en el país están entregando todas las obras y lo digo, con ingeniería, con capacidad constructiva y con inversión venezolana vamos a terminar todas las obras que empezó Odebrecht y que abandonó producto de su propia crisis. Todas las obras las vamos a terminar.
¡Ay, qué bruto focalicero!